What's up guys, Brandon here. Welcome to the third episode of Wrist Ring Wednesdays. Today we're going to be going over part 2 out of the series, How to Pick the Right Watch for You. Last week's episode we went over different timepiece styles and the heritage of those timepieces. If you missed that episode you can check it out over here. But this week what we're going to be doing is we're going to go over the different sizes of watches and how to make sure it looks great on your wrist and you have the proper proportions. So usually in my opinion, like the best thing to do is go to the boutique or go to the AD and try it on. And just, because you can measure the watch and you can find out the sizes for it, but you never get to actually check it out and make sure you love it and the weight feels good and all that stuff. But with that being said, timepiece transactions are definitely happening more and more over the computer and digitally. So hopefully these few tips can guide you along the way of making sure that the watch that you do buy online fits great on your wrist and it's going to look good when you get it at home. So the first thing that we're going to be going over today is case diameter on the watches. And typically what you'll find is the case diameters for men's, at least, that is like the current trend going on, is anywhere from 38 millimeters up into 46 millimeters. And then getting real big after that is like 48 millimeters and 50 millimeters. So one thing that we've realized, and just the current trends that are in, is if you measure your wrist and you have anywhere from a 6-inch to 7-inch wrist, the best case sizes that are going to be looking on your wrist are going to be anywhere from 38 millimeters to about 42 millimeters. Me, myself, I have a 6¼ inch wrist. And personally, my favorite type of size watch to wear is a 42 millimeter watch. So with that being said, you definitely want to be cognitive of the type of size that's going to be on your wrist, because sometimes it can look super big and it just doesn't look really proportionate. But there's always that personal preference factor that's going to go in there, and whatever you like, it's all up to you. I mean, if your buddies all got a bunch of big watches and they have huge wrists but you have tiny wrists, don't worry about that. Whatever you think looks great on you, at the end of the day, it does come down to that. But what we definitely have found, if you do have that 6 to 7-inch wrist, you can find that the 38 to the 42 millimeter watches are going to look great. And then besides that, if you're going to fall into the ballpark around a 7.5-inch wrist to maybe an 8-inch wrist, that 44, 46 millimeters, even 48 millimeters if you want to go there, would probably look great on your wrist over like a 38 millimeter watch. So the second thing, while we're on the topic of watches and being proportionate to the wrist, is that we want to be cognitive of the actual thickness of the case. So what we found is that the smaller the watch, so about the diameter is 38 millimeters to 40 or 42 millimeters, the thickness of the case is definitely going to be a little thinner than a larger watch. So you'll usually find that those watches are going to be around 7 millimeters thick. And the larger the diameter of the watch goes, so 44 or 46 millimeters or even 48, the thickness on that case is going to be around 9 millimeters to 10 millimeters. And one thing that you do want to be cognitive of as well is the more complications that the watch itself has, the thicker that the case of the watch is going to have to be to actually store those movements. So with that being said as well, just be careful with that. If you get a crazy watch with a bunch of complications on it and you're like, hey, this is a 42 or a 44 millimeter, it should be around about this thick. One, it should say it, but two, you should also just have that thing in the back of your head that says this is definitely going to be a little thicker than some of the other watches I have because it's got all these crazy complications on it. One last thing that we've noticed when it comes to watch thickness is that when the transparent background, so you have an actual clear crystal on the back and the case back is an exhibition case back, that's definitely going to add a little bit of thickness to the case because that crystal does take up some space. One of the last things that's going to affect the proportions of your watch is going to be the width of the band. So just to give you guys a heads up, the width of the band is typically going to be half the size of the case diameter. So with that being said, if it's 40 millimeters, then the width of the band is going to be 20 millimeters. A leather strap is going to give it more of a slimmer look, while a NATO strap or something along those lines is going to give it more of a sporty look. Personally, I prefer a metal band that matches the actual case of the watch, just because I feel like it makes the watch look heavier and it gives the timepiece more of a complete look. So those few things should definitely give you guys the ability to find the right size watch for your wrist. And one thing I did want to share with you is the website Crown and Calibre. They actually have a really cool sizing guide on their website. It'll show you different size wrists paired with different size watches. So if you've never seen say a 46 millimeter watch on a 6.5 wrist, you could head over to their website and you could just go through and try out different sizes, and it'll give you a good general gauge on how big your wrist should be for how big the watch should be and what's it going to look like. With that being said, I did want to share a few tips on how you guys could go about changing the strap on your watch, or if you wanted to buy a new band or something like that. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you need to measure the width between the lugs. And like we said earlier, the width between the lugs should be half the diameter of the actual case itself. But all you really have to do is take off the strap and either get a ruler, or what I'm going to do is I have some links down in the description, and there's a bunch of cool printouts online, but I'll put some down there, and all you do is print that out, and then you match up the lug with what it says on the paper. So it'll tell you if it's 20 millimeters, 21 millimeters, 22 millimeters, and so on. That way you have an accurate number for what the actual width between the lugs are, and that's the first starting point of what kind of strap you're going to buy. So after you find out the width between the lugs, now you need to make sure that you buy a strap that's going to fit your wrist. So one of the easiest ways to do it is if you have a soft tape measure like I have here. What you're going to do is you're just going to measure your wrist, and I'll do mine super quick for you guys. But if you don't have one of these, what you can always do is you can use a piece of thread and then lay the thread down and then just grab the measurement of that with a ruler. So I have about a 6.25 wrist, like we said before. So from here, what you can do is then you can go with the appropriate lug width that you have, as well as then pick the proper strap that's going to fit this. And one thing to note too, if you have a strap that fits really well on a watch that you own already, you can just literally take that off and measure that with a ruler, and then you could have the strap size right there. One thing to note for straps, guys, is that straps are going to be measured in millimeters. So if you're going to measure something in centimeters or inches, use some type of conversion tool so you're not getting confused. But if you can measure in millimeters, that's going to be your best bet, so it's going to be exact. Straps also, when you see them online or you're looking at a strap in a box or something like that, it's going to come with the long side first and then the short side. So if it reads something, say, 130 millimeters by 80 millimeters, the long side, for instance, is going to be 130 millimeters, while the short side is reading as 80 millimeters. Lastly, with straps, it's also going to give you the measurement for the lug. So it should say something like 20 millimeters. But if it says something with 20/18, that just means that where it connects to the case is going to be 20 millimeters, and that 18 stands for the end of the strap, and it's probably going to be tapered off. So just to recap, they're going to be measured in millimeters, and then if you see something that says like 20/18, it's going to be a tapered strap, and 20 millimeters, that first number in there, is going to be what actually connects to the case, and it's going to be the distance between your lugs. Alright guys, well that wraps up our mini-series on how to pick the right watch for you, and we hope it gave you some direction to choose what kind of timepiece you want to go with. Whether that's being you like the dive watches better than the field watches, or you really like aviator watches now. And of course, now you know how to pick out the right size model for yourself as well. If you guys have any tips or tricks on how to do all this that we just did today that we didn't go over, feel free to drop a comment below and we can go over that as well. And if you like the video, please subscribe. We'll be releasing these every Wednesday. And we also do the Coalition newsletter on Sundays, where we go over really cool industry news, as well as watch reviews and the best deals as well. So I'll put that link below so you can sign up, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching.